Beledar has shifted. It's not safe to go out now. Why don't I read a bit while we wait it out? With any luck, we won't be here long. Beledar. The Emperor's Vision. Brave souls, heed the sacred flame's call to voyage beyond the storming sea and Titan's Isle. A radiant light shall beckon. Face the trials of Hallowfall. Let the sacred flame's unwavering faith be your anchor. The Arathi Empire, since its inception, has thrived under the sacred flame's prophetic guidance. Our Emperor, interpreting these divine visions, commands us to fulfill or forestall events of prophecy. Thus, our empire has flourished. The quest for Hallowfall, a perilous journey across the storming sea, was no different. Our military, driven by prophecy and the Church's fiery heart, sought the sacred land. The journey was perilous, and we lost many faithful Arathi on that journey, but we persevered and revealed the Emperor's vision. Beledar's embrace, the first of our trials, ravaged our third fleet, dashing it upon the cliffs. Yet those who endured sanctified the land beneath the light of the star we named Beledar. The land in the cavern proved fertile, and we settled, founding Merildar, our holy city. We honor the fallen and celebrate our new Arathi society. Years later, the day of darkness tested us anew. Beledar faltered, casting horrors from the depths upon us. We battled the Nerubians, the Kobus, and shadowy apparitions. Through the sacred flame's strength, we withstood the darkness, bolstering the star Beledar with our faith. Now we face the unknown third tribulation. Will it be the Harbinger's final onslaught of Renilash? Our faith remains steadfast. We are the Empire's resilient children, yet the future looms ominously. What fate befalls our sacred star, and can we endure this ordeal? We cannot leave, lest the shadow consume Beledar. We cannot send for help, for the journey home is too perilous. Our only choice is to defend our new home, and our star, from the shadows that would devour us. Sacred flame grant us strength. The Emperor never foresaw our survival. The Song of Renilash, Chapter 11. The Arathi, guardians of the sacred flame, formed the Aegis shield, a constellation of courage against the encroaching darkness. Their resolve a beacon in the night, as stars began to fade into shadow. The Harbinger's forces, nightmares of legs and claws, spun from the loom of oblivion, skittered across the battlefield. Their movements, a grotesque dance, echoed the discordant rhythm of a world teetering on the brink. The wall, built with the living rock of Titans, bore the weight of the conflict, each stone a silent witness to the struggle, whispering tales of valor to the wind, stirring the spirits of warriors long gone. The remains of gods, scattered across the battlefield, pulsed with an unseen light. Their echoes, a clarion call, stirred the Arathi, compelling them to fight, to kill for the world's dawn. Amidst the chaos, the Forgotten One cried, When the last star fades, the Emperor's crown will weigh heavy with the sins of 1,000 years. The stalwart soldiers threw down their spears and wept tears of blood and burning anger. This one's a much older history about our very first Emperor Thoradin, brought to us by one of the Outlanders. Strom'kar, the Warbreaker. Human history is not complete without mention of Strom'kar. With this blade, a visionary warlord named Thoradin united his race into a single nation. He led his people to victory against the trolls in one of the greatest wars humankind has ever fought. He changed the destiny of the world. Strom'kar's story is one of violence and bloodshed, cunning and desperation, and ultimately, of bravery and sacrifice. The early human tribes had many legends about giants who had once walked among them. These mighty beings had many names, but the most common attributed to them was regale. The folk tales said that the giants watched over humans as parents would watch over sons and daughters. The regale taught their primitive children the ways of foraging, of masonry and smithing, and of making war. By the time of warlord Thoradin, the regale of the human lands had long since died out. What little remained of their presence included weapons they had left behind. The humans treated these arms as sacred heirlooms and symbols of their tribes. But the blade later known as Strom'kar would become much more than that. In Thoradin's hands, it would become a symbol of all humanity. From Chapter 8 of The One True Human Kingdom by the historian Lore. Even as the brutish Amani trolls raided and pillaged, the human tribes bickered and squabbled with each other. Only warlord Thoradin and his Arathi tribe recognized the folly of their ways. If they did not unite, the moss-skinned trolls would crush humankind and desecrate its ancestral lands. So it was that Thoradin declared himself king, and set out to bring the tribes to heel. Many he won to his side through the marriages of his sons and daughters, others through promises of wealth and land. Some closed their ears to words of diplomacy. They spoke only the language of violence. Fortunately, Thoradin knew that language well. For weeks, Thoradin and his warriors struggled to conquer the rugged mountain people known as the Alteraci. Though the upstart king was confident he could subdue the tribe if given enough time, he knew the cost would be very high. To prevent unnecessary bloodshed, he changed his tactics. Thoradin shed his battle armor and painted his chest with Arathi tribal symbols. With only Strom'kar in hand, he marched up the mountain and challenged the Alteraci leader, Igneous, to a duel. Before long, Igneous emerged from the forest, skin dyed red with his own tribal marks, blade sharpened and hungry for death. He dwarfed Thoradin in size and strength, but the Arathi leader had other advantages. He had chosen the duel on a day when thick fog enveloped the mountains. Using the weather to his advantage, Thoradin eluded Igneous's wild swings and disarmed his bigger foe. Igneous was at Thoradin's mercy, but the Arathi leader did not strike. He plunged Strom'kar into the damp earth and extended the hand of peace. On that day, he won the Alteraci to his side. The only human tribe powerful enough to end King Thoradin's dream of unity dwelled in Tirisfal Glades. A great warrior named Lordain led the region's noble people. They would not submit to shows of force like the Alteraci, to win their loyalty, Thoradin needed to appeal to their religious beliefs. Thus, Thoradin and his personal guards made a pilgrimage to the region's shrines and sacred groves. At each site, the king performed rituals, as was the custom of Lordain and his kin. Thoradin even wore a pendant of the Silver Hand, an image held sacred by Tirisfal's humans. At the end of the pilgrimage, Thoradin met with Lordain. The king pledged that if the tribe joined him, He would adopt their mystic ways and spread them among the Arathi. To seal his promise, Thoradin ran his palm along Strom'kar's edge and mixed his blood with the earth of Tirisfal. The histories record Thoradin as saying, "Between our people, let this be the only blood we spill." And so it was. Lordain and his people bent the knee to King Thoradin. From Chapter 14 of The One True Human Kingdom by the historian Lore. Thoradin and other early human warlords held their swords and axes sacred. Many believed that the spirits of their ancestors lived on in their weapons. With this in mind, it's quite extraordinary that Thoradin convinced all of the human tribal leaders to lend him their personal blades. Arathi blacksmiths took shards of metal from each of these weapons and added them to Thoradin's greatsword. It was an act of brilliance, for it secured the eternal loyalty of the tribes. Who would ever rise up against Thoradin and risk striking the sword that contained their own ancestors? When the work was done, Thoradin renamed his sword Strom'kar, the Warbreaker. With the human tribes united, King Thoradin set out to found a new capital. According to one legend, he discovered his answer in a dream. In it, he saw his father wearing the pelt of a black wolf. He told Thoradin of an arid land southeast of Tirisfal Glades. If the king built his capital there, his people would prosper. Thoradin sought out the land from his dream, a region known today as the Arathi Highlands. As the story goes, the king spied a black wolf roaming the barren terrain. On that spot, Thoradin used Strom'kar to carve out the boundaries of his city in the dirt. Then he set his masons to work. So arose Strom, mighty capital of the first human kingdom. Thoradin was not a king to sit idle on his throne, just as Strom'kar was not a sword to sit idle in its sheath. The Arathi military patrolled the far-flung borders of the human territories, repelling Amani troll incursions. King Thoradin took part in many of these skirmishes, often at great risk to his own life. One account tells of a brutal Amani ambush that struck Thoradin's forces. The trolls routed the humans, separating the king from his warriors. Though he was outnumbered 10-1, Thoradin did not flee. He did not beg, he did not cower. No true Arathi would stain his honor with such craven acts. Thoradin sharpened Strom'kar's edge on the skulls of his enemies and painted its steel with their blood. When the guards finally reached him, they found their king standing over 10 broken Amani corpses. From Chapter 29 of The Warring Tribes and the Rise of Arathor by the historian Evelina. To defeat the Amani, Arathor and the High Elves of Quel'Thalas forged an alliance. King Thoradin marshaled over 20,000 human soldiers and launched his armies at the trolls. The decisive battle unfolded at Alterac Fortress. The Amani host besieged the stronghold. While the humans defended the fortress from the onslaught, the High Elves smashed into the troll rearguard. Thoradin waded through the Amani warbands with the rest of his soldiers, Strom'kar hacking down troll after troll. Once the king knew his forces had worn the enemy thin, he revealed his secret weapon. 100 human magi emerged from Alterac Fortress. Alongside elven sorcerers, they pooled their power and unleashed a single terrible spell on the Amani. A column of fire ripped down from the heavens and blasted through the trolls. The howling torrent of flame burned the Amani to ash. Thus the troll wars ended, with human and elf triumphant. After the troll wars, Thoradin embarked on a diplomatic mission to Quel'Thalas, and secured humanity's bond of loyalty with the High Elves. The king created a military pact so that each side would help the other if the Amani ever threatened their lands again. He also carved out new territorial borders with the elves and drew up trade agreements to foster the prosperity of Arathor for generations to come. Before Thoradin left Quel'Thalas, the elves gave him a gift. Their greatest blacksmiths and enchanters toiled over Strom'kar and imbued it with extraordinary power. Thoradin marveled at the masterwork of the elves. The new Strom'kar gleamed with an otherworldly beauty. It weighed almost nothing in Thoradin's hands, and no matter how often he used it, the edge never seemed to dull. As his years wore on, a grizzled Thoradin abdicated his throne in peace. He broke tradition and kept Strom'kar as his own. Though some bristled at what they considered an act of greed, Thoradin retained the blade for practical reasons. Strom'kar had become a symbol of kingship. Thoradin wanted Arathor's citizenry to see his bloodline as the legitimate rulers, not simply whoever wielded the sword. Free from the burden of leadership, Thoradin spent much of his time studying ancient ruins in Tirisfal glades. He became obsessed with the origins of humankind and with the tales of giants who once walked the land. Thoradin learned to use Strom'kar's enchantments to locate hidden places of power. During one of his journeys in Tirisfal, Thoradin and a retinue of his followers entered mysterious catacombs buried beneath the earth. According to the legends, none of them were ever seen again. Many strange tales exist about what befell Thoradin, but the truth is the strangest of them all. In Tirisfal glades, he discovered two long-lost subterranean chambers. One belonged to the noble keeper Tyr, the other to a monstrosity known as a Kaj, a bloodthirsty servant of the malevolent old gods. Before written history, Tyr had sacrificed himself to defeat Zakaj in a battle that shook the heart of Azeroth. The Keeper's allies buried both combatants at the site of their mythic confrontation, and they sealed the tomb with magical wards to prevent anyone from disturbing what lay inside. Unaware of the great darkness locked beneath the earth, Thoradin instructed the Magi and his retinue to break the seals. They succeeded, and in so doing, their arcane spellwork inadvertently resurrected Zakaj. As the lumbering creature tore through Thoradin's followers, the former king did not flee. He did not beg, he did not cower. No true Arathi would stain his honor with such craven acts. Thoradin sharpened Strom'kar's edge one last time, burying the sword into Zakaj's skull. The blade's elven enchantments forced the horror into a deep slumber and prevented it from regenerating. It was Thoradin's last great act. At the moment of his strike, he suffered a mortal wound from Zakaj. The warrior who united humankind died that day, Strom'kar stained with the blood of one final enemy.